little bit further forward. Get my...
You can hear the wind blowing down there.
Yeah, the chimney.
Yeah.
It seems a little crooked. Hold on.
Oh, kind of canted towards you anyway.
Perfect.
This is, you can barely see that commissioner.org. Oh, I see.
I just moved it.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah,
you did.
you can see comments.
Hi, Jimmy.
All right, good evening. I'm Chris Lukasevich, candidate for Carbon County Commissioner, and you're joining us for Carbon Matters live streaming. As every 2 weeks, I'm joined here by my wife Maggie and co-host. Thank you so much for tuning in to Carbon Matters live streaming, where we're going to go ahead and discuss the issues that matter most to you, a resident of Carbon County. We're going to have that conversation. We're going to have the discussion that's going to ensure we're all better informed voters as we approach the 5 November election. And third, as I always talk about what the purposes are, the third purpose is indeed give me an opportunity to present my positions or where I stand on a particular issue, and similarly for you to challenge me on those issues or positions that I might hold. As always, we are sponsored by, that is, Carbon Matters live streaming is sponsored by Ruiz Coffee, ruizcoffee.com. So if you're looking for a really good cup of coffee from Panama, there it is, Ruiz Coffee. As always, our heartfelt thanks out to Leah Peck for her in-kind contribution to C4 Chris for Carbon County Commissioner. Other than between 5:30 and 7:30, 7 days a week when we're sitting down for dinner and getting Molly ready for bath and bed, 570-503-6780. Feel free to give me a call. I mean, I think it was almost 10 o'clock last night. I was up on answering calls and doing computer work and stuff like that. Actually, I think 4 consecutive ones, but it was great conversations and discussions. So please don't hesitate to give me a call. I'm doing about 19 hours a day anyhow, so might as well just make sure you fill them up. You know, probably 11 o'clock I'm laying down, and by 4:30 I'm back up. So even in that time, if you feel you need to call and you can't sleep, just give me a shout and I'll answer that phone. So thank you so much. I do want to highlight, we do have our Ruiz coffee mugs and C4 mugs right here. Unfortunately, I no longer have any available for sale. We only have 3 left. There's 2 here.
Go to Bob's Diner and steal one.
Oh, right. On that would be 6th Street in Jim Thorpe, right behind St. Joe's Church. If you go in there any morning, you'll see 4 or 5 of those C4 mugs circulating around. But we do have about a handful of large long sleeve black tees that are still available from Lehigh Valley Apparel Creations in the Bethlehem area. And so those are still available for $20. And I do have to make one more plug for Judge Janine and her book. As we talked about the last 2 episodes of Carbon Matters live streaming, she was up at Penn's Peak, had a pretty darn good turnout up there, and there are signed books available. If you just get in contact with me, I will serve as the middleman to the organization that has those signed books by Judge Janine available to you.
Marianne says, "Happy birthday, Chris."
All right, well, let's stay off that subject because I'm not like a birthday person. Yeah, it's really, when you posted that on Facebook this morning, I knew there were going to be comments, and it just, you know. But thank you so much. I appreciate that. 57 today. I understand from my mother it was a beautiful day. It wasn't 40 mile an hour winds like it was today or the last 16 to 18 hours. But again, thank you for joining us at Carbon Matters live streaming, and I do indeed want to jump right into this, but I have to talk about the wind, because that's the one word that probably describes the last 18 to 24 hours. So you heard the logo or the mantra that comes out of New York City: see something, say something. That was then adopted by the Department of Homeland Security. So when it comes to my sign, if you see something that's out of alignment, say something or do something. Straighten it out. Give me a call. Let me know. We only had 4 signs of the big 4x8s that actually suffered some damage.
Right.
I got 3 of those corrected. I still have 1 more on 895. Gonna check a couple tomorrow. Hopefully I can get my right-hand man, Larry, to see if I can get him out to Pine Point Plaza to check the 2 out there at that property. And other than that, at least the 4x8s are in pretty good shape. We do have some remedial maintenance to do out in Franklin Township, but we're moving ahead. So let's go ahead. Let's start in with some of the soft issues that are popping up. And just after, the weekend after we finished our last edition, Maggie, the Lenni Lenape, actually Native Americans from the Delaware tribe of this area, had their powwow in Jim Thorpe and Mock Chunk Lake. So they did two different things. They had a 1737, they actually did the walking purchase, part of the walking purchase, which was more or less William Penn stealing land from the Indians. And surprisingly, right on top of Cottoners Mountain at Kenny Bond's farm is one of the points where the walking purchase ended. Whoa, so really interesting, you know. But again, the Lenni Lenape, great history, Native American history.
Didn't they have a Ben Franklin?
Yeah, they had a Ben Franklin look-alike impersonator. That reminded me of that event we did in Washington at Christmas time, and we had Ben Franklin join us at dinner for about 30 minutes. I thought he was part of the meal, like included with the meal. And I think he may not have been, because he kept hanging around like he was waiting for something. I think he was waiting for a tip. And I just thought, wow, he really likes us. But that may not have been the case. Talking about wind, that takes us to really the leaves and the fall foliage. You know, if you're from Jim Thorpe or trying to pass through Jim Thorpe these past 2 weekends, wow, it's been rough.
Right, it's been very, very backed up.
Right, it's been really backed up. So again, one more weekend of fall foliage. What remains of the leaves on the trees, there's still a bit of color out there. But I would again advise avoiding Jim Thorpe unless you're coming here for one of the last train excursions, which we'll jump into a little bit later.
Yeah. Joe, thank you. If you can check the Pine Point Plaza. Joe said that he might be out there.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just a quick call, and I'll be on tomorrow morning, but I'll be out doing some sign work tomorrow and canvassing. Again, if you're just joining us, Carbon Matters live streaming, thank you for tuning in as we talked about the issues that matter most to you. And it is somewhat biased because I get to choose them, but the fact is they come out of the commissioners meeting, prison board meeting, salary retirement board, the Times News, the Morning Call, even some of the Wall Street Journal. Maggie, we had a great event last Thursday night up at Blue Mountain. Can you just real succinctly talk about that? Because that was a great event.
Right. It was called Art with a View, and it was put on by the CCCF, which is the Carbon County Community Fund, and it's to raise money for their arts branch of their grants that they give out. And Randy Ravenel was the Lifetime Achievement Award. And they had his artwork there, and his son was one of the guest speakers, and it was really neat to hear stories of people who had been impacted by Randy.
And for those of you from Jim Thorpe, he actually mentioned Dougie Rauntz as one of the individuals who were significantly influenced by Randy Ravenel. And honestly, we know if you went to Jim Thorpe High School and you had art class with Randy Ravenel, you were influenced by him, and I would always say in a very positive manner. And talking about a social events, social, but it was really business. I went to the Mock Chunk Trust Company sponsored this week the Economic Outlook for 2020. And the great doctor who was there, and he spoke the last couple years, again predicted that there would be no recession within the next year. So again, think about that in the political arena, what that might be for the presidential elections in 2020. Again, no recession. The economy looks pretty decent going into 2020, although there are some slight downtrend indicators, but overall looking pretty solid. Inflation was at 1.7%, so that's not too bad. All right. That was a great event, though, by Mock Chunk Trust Company. It was actually held
Right here at Dean
like
Andrews.
70 yards from us. I literally could have
throw a rock
and hit it. So that was a nice walk. And talking about the economy, wow, we're getting kind of heavy here pretty quick. But talking about the economy, I was looking at the September 2019 economic data from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics and the Center for Workforce Information Analysis for Carbon County. The overall unemployment rate in Pennsylvania is 3.9, which is pretty good. Nationally, I believe it was about 3.7. Unfortunately, in Carbon County, it's 4.9. It's 1% higher here in Carbon County, the unemployment rate, compared to the state average. So again, we need to continue to chip away at that. Not only do we need to ensure more individuals have the opportunity to work, but they're working closer to home. They're not having to commute to the Lehigh Valley, up to Humboldt, up into the Hazleton area and stuff like that. Again, we need some homegrown employment businesses of note. Again, while we appreciate those minimum wage jobs because they're good entry-level jobs, we do need jobs that pay more here in Carbon County.
Hi, Sarah, Lisa, Carrie and Eddie.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So we got some Lansford folks joining us.
Yep.
Panther Valley High School, when I was up there finish up canvassing, we were talking a little bit about Panther Valley High School football. Been a pretty rough season. Jim Thorpe is kind of had a challenge last weekend and stuff. I get over to that game. We were talking about the CCCF and Art with the View. Well, unbeknownst to us, at the same time, Blue Mountain did have a problem up there at the ski resort just prior here. I saw that Blue Mountain was asking to speed up some building plans because they had some notable water damage, water damage.
Yeah.
So they're working
one of
with
their buildings.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're working with the Palmerton Borough Council or the zoning board to get some kind of expedited ability
permits and all.
Right, to get ready for the ski season because it's literally
a couple months.
Normally Thanksgiving they can potentially open.
That's true.
So you're about 5 weeks away from that.
Yeah.
So
it was one of their sheds. It was I can't remember.
Was it like for maintenance of skis and everything or no?
No, it was a part of the rental process. Give it to me now.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a tuning up shop.
The tuning up shop.
And stuff like that.
Tune the skis and all that.
Yeah. So, but again, talking about other events, I want to talk two in the future that are coming up. This Saturday and this Sunday. First we have, the Lehighton Halloween Parade. And we're going to have a special guest joining us, you in the sidecar, right?
Yep.
Nicholas, a high school student from Lehighton, is going to be joining Maggie in the sidecar. Larry and Mary Ann will be with us.
Yes.
They'll be guiding the C4 mobile, and I'll be doing the LTCs, leather troop carriers or shoes, running through Lehighton as we did in a couple other parades last year.
Yep.
And then on Sunday we'll be down to where my grandfather and grandmother immigrated from Russia in 1912. We'll be down in Palmerton for that parade also. So two good events coming up. And then the following weekend on Saturday is the Jim Thorpe Parade. Maggie won't be here, but we have a special vehicle that's going to be replacing the motorcycle and sidecar. And that's a big surprise. I think it's going to be really exciting for people to see that vehicle that's going to join the convoy.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going to miss that.
All right. Talking to Jim Thorpe, I know the Borough Council, again, short-term rentals. And I bring up short-term rentals and trying to develop the ordinance for them. And specifically, part of the problem is them meeting similar safety and occupancy standards of bed and breakfast, hotels, things of that nature. And while it sounds like we're talking Jim Thorpe, the reality is throughout this county, we're starting to see more Airbnb, short-term rentals, or STRs as they refer to them. And I would say places like Lehighton and Weisport are going to see a notable increase come spring once the
Especially with the
biking
trails
season
and all
kicks
that.
in.
The trails.
So I would say, neighboring townships should be looking and paying attention to what's
Right.
occurring in Jim Thorpe. Hopefully, because of the amount of STRs, short-term rentals, bed and breakfasts, that we have here, Airbnbs, we'll be putting together at least a good foundation for an ordinance that might be a template for other communities in Carbon County. So Jim Thorpe popped up again, but it's all simply about security at our schools and officers, right? We're trying to get an officer into the schools. I know there are resource officers in many of the schools in Carbon County. Now we're starting to actually see police officers or individuals who have been given police authorities, such as our good friend Frank, who's up at Carbon County Technical Institute. That started last year. That was a jump forward in ensuring that our children, or the children of Carbon County, have a safe place in which to be educated, or a safer place. It's unfortunate, of course, that we need to go that step, but Thorpe is working out those officer details. And again, it's best to look at how other communities work through these challenges, or other school districts, versus learning it the hard way yourself. Take what looks right, what works right, and then apply it to the unique environment, which may be your school district, your borough. A big believer in that, right?
Yep.
Learn from others' mistakes versus your own. Talking about mistakes, I think that leads into disasters. I don't know how I made that connection.
That leap.
Yeah, that leap. But no, it is a good one, because the carbon agencies brought together, and even from outside of Carbon County, agencies to do a disaster preparedness. Now, interesting, it was, if I understand, an accident which included a freight train with chemicals and a passenger train. Or was it an excursion train? Interesting. I wonder if that train had to pay amusement tax, right? Which we'll talk about in a little bit. But the reason I bring this up, because one, it was a necessary exercise. I had noticed when I started researching this well over a year ago that there had been a series of incidences involving railroad accidents.
Right.
And
Cars getting hit.
Right. And I had brought up to individuals within the emergency management and did a blog on Carbon Matters about the necessity. I thought the worst case disaster scenario that could occur here was a train, a passenger excursion train, going off the rails. And I was so glad that someone took the cue and brought that exercise in, because as I reviewed the emergency response plan for Carbon County, that was never listed as a potential scenario. Yet when I assessed the threats in Carbon County in regards to emergency response, that was my number one. That number two, I think, was probably a rock slide on the mansion house. But number one was, one of the trains derailing up there. So I'm glad to see emergency services in Carbon County stepped up to the plate, took cue, and carried that exercise out. Well, if you're just joining us, this is Carbon Matters live streaming. I'm Chris Lukasevich, candidate for Carbon County Commissioner. I'm joined as always, by my wife Maggie and co-host. I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight, because from the bottom of my heart, if it matters to you, it matters to me. And I appreciate all of you who have reached out to me over really since we started this campaign, and most importantly now as we're getting towards the end of the campaign. Right. The phone calls, the conversations, the posts on Facebook, just the outpouring of support, the conversations, discussions that we're having. And for most part, and I would say most part, very collegial, smart, creative, just sound back and forth and discussion, which again just makes us all stronger, better informed as we discuss the issues in a civil manner. Right,
but it's been a place for people to vent about things that matter to them, that it seems like they don't have a voice in.
Right.
And even though they're talking to Chris, who's actually still a private citizen and unable to do anything, he listens to what they have to say, and at least they feel like, wow, someone's actually listening to me. And, you know, if the people of Carbon County deem him, you know, worthy to be elected, then he would be someone that would be going into that office already knowing these issues that people have in, you know, that and be able to try to do something about it.
Right. And that was all the reason why in 2016 it started attending the commissioners meeting, to start better understanding what we would call in my career field the operational environment. And I was going into new places all the time throughout my career. And each time you would have to go in there and adapt to that unique operating environment. In Carbon County, for me, at least in the political realm, the economic realm, was a new environment. It was even a new culture in some ways, because all the things that have changed over the last 3.5 decades since I entered the service. So it was great to come in here and start learning again the issues and getting a deeper understanding of those here in Carbon County. Yep. That was great. So again, I want to thank you all for tuning in and talking about civil discourse. Election letters in the Times News. Yes. Election letters are welcome by the Times News. So I'm going to encourage everyone, regardless of where you stand on an issue or in regards to a candidate, please consider writing a letter to the editor of the Times News to have your opinion broadcasted to a wider audience here in Carbon County. Let your sentiments be quote unquote heard or read. Let them be read. Now, it's interesting though, some of the guidelines of these letters say that we have to be civil. Civil. Right, in every form of, you know, more or less kind, right? No derogatory statements, no false declarations or attack other letter writers. But it's interesting, what's required of letters to the editor is not required on the Times News comments section. One, they allow anonymous names or aliases, AKAs, to be utilized. So people are quite ugly, actually. There's quite a few people who, instead of having a civil discourse or conversation, are rude, quite out.
They hide behind the anonymity. They think they can be as rude as they want because they don't think they're going to be called out on it.
Or they won't be publicly called out on it because they have the anonymity. So the Times News needs to change that policy as quickly as possible. It needs to be equal. Those letters to the editor, and I think the comment section online, needs to be one, you have your name on there, and there's no longer that anonymity that you can be hide behind. And then they need to enforce a standard, a code of conduct, for say
language and such.
But I tell you what, though, in regards to election letters, there was one that really stood out.
Yay.
Right? And I want to thank Mr. Armin Feldman for his letter to the editor, Confusion About Election for Commissioner.
Zach calls them keyboard cowboys. That's a good one, Zach.
That's good, Zach. Yes, indeed they are, But Armin's letter to the editor really highlighted, I would guess, the challenge that we have collectively, of fighting against the ingrained or the embedded establishment here in Carbon County, the good old boy network that doesn't want change. They don't want a philosophy of let's go. They want to maintain the status quo. And that's a fact. We see it playing out. Mr. Feldman highlighted how the establishment is working to attack a fellow Republican nominee. Isn't that something that they would be doing that? Their nominee, and here they are supporting a write-in candidate. And that's the majority of the E-Board of that Republican committee. Shame on you. You're an embarrassment to the GOP. That's what I say to those E-Board members who are not loyal to its nominees. Shame on you. You're a disgrace to the GOP. And I know Lawrence Tabbas recognizes that. And I know at every level, people who hear this, see this, know what's going on in Carbon County, also see you as an embarrassment to this party. Take that to the bank. Thank you, Armin, for your letter.
Yes, thank you.
It was great. Oh my gosh, I really loved it. That was
We've
good.
gotten so many comments and
Yep.
people just really, getting pretty upset about the fact that that's such a
Yep.
travesty.
Yep. So we're working to bring transparency and
Right.
accountability, not only to government, but even to those of you who are in the Republican committee or Republican here in Carbon County. You need to be informed and understand what's going on in your GOP. And I hope the Democrats are doing likewise, being held accountable by their members, by those who are Democrats. All right. Another event I got to go to, the St. Luke's groundbreaking.
Right.
That was actually a very well done event by St. Luke's out there in Franklin Township.
It's still out there.
The tent's still out there. It was a giant tent. It was a great event. It was kind of an overcast, a little bit rainy day and stuff like that. But that was a great event by St. Luke's out there in Franklin Township, right off the Maury Road. That's an $80 million campus. We spoke, matter of fact, it was that Thursday that it took place, I believe. Or was it a Thursday or Wednesday?
Wednesday.
But it was right around the time we did Carbon Matters last time because we talked about it.
All right.
And then it was in the paper the next day or two after.
Right.
But that's interesting that we have St. Luke's breaking ground. I'm going to jump ahead here.
Yeah. Do it. No, should you? I mean, or should you let that
well,
play out a
it's
little
kind of in the hospital realm.
It is in the hospital realm because there was the other site proposed location for
LVHN.
across from the Walmart, and Mahoning Township apparently doesn't want it.
Right, there's actually, and I'm shocked, supervisors in Mahoning Township actually saying they don't believe another hospital is needed in Carbon County. And I spoke about this a couple weeks ago. One of my priorities, and it's documented in my day one motions, is to ensure seniors can age in place longer, stay in their homes longer, stay in their communities longer. And critical to that, of course, is transportation,
accessible healthcare,
accessible healthcare. And this provides another option.
Right.
And think about this: as we know, when there's competition, what tends to happen? Prices go down
to lure people
to lure people in, or it also creates pressure on those who may be not performing as well to up their game. So let's say you go to St. Luke's, but you're really not happy with St. Luke's, and now you have an option to go to LVHN. Right now you see the flow of people to LVHN. So St. Luke's would have to make an investment to up their game or service. Right. So it's good to have competition. Right? And we do need, just like we had Ganada Hutton and Palmerton hospitals, and you also could cross over into Hazleton years before. Also, you had those community hospitals. We need 2 hospitals in Carbon County. We're at an aging or a gray tsunami is taking place here. Medical services are critical, and I'm taken aback by the fact that the township supervisors are not fully on board. As long as LVHN is adhering to the zoning ordinances, let's give them the full support. And I admit, I wasn't at the meeting. I've taken this from the Times News. There could be information gaps that I don't understand, and if there are, Mr. Bruce Staggerwalt and others down there, please give me a call. Let's have a conversation. Right. Help me be your best advocate. But in order to do that, I need to better understand the issue. But what I take away from the Times News is, it's unfortunate, and there's resistance to this that I think is not based on sound reasoning.
Yeah, I thought one of the points was because it's a nonprofit that they don't pay property tax, so there's not a revenue to the township necessarily.
Was that in the article?
Yeah.
Well, and St. Luke's is a nonprofit also.
Exactly.
You know, even though they have $1.5 billion in revenue, but again, that's a different issue, right? They are a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Nonprofit
doesn't necessarily mean no money.
You don't make money, right? Yeah, right. You make money, but you reinvest it into the business and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right. So again, we need to dig into that.
Dig into that. That's why we were kind of like, should we bring it up? Not,
right.
You know.
Because again, I'd like to think the Times News gives you a little bit more than one side of the story, but again, not having been there, and that's not being live streamed or anything, those meetings, so.
Right. It's not like we can go back and watch that meeting and see what happened.
Though, interesting though, I think Mahoning Township did approve a new town supervisor's building, township building.
The Mahoning?
Yeah, they've just, and they need one.
Yeah, Nicole, yes, Mahoning is fighting the LVHN.
Yeah.
She asked that.
Yeah.
And then Mary Ann said, more jobs, less travel for Carbon County residents. That's another reason to have it, because then our Carbon County residents can be working there, and it's just down the road across from Walmart.
Commuting to the Lehigh Valley. Because we know we have significant number of residents who work at St. Luke's and LVHN, and what used to be coordinated health, now that one's just been recently brought up, right? So commuting to the Lehigh Valley. So let's get our residents, shorten their commute, right? Get them working here versus far away. And again, that's quality. So think about this, an hour of your day on the beginning and the end, where you could be having valuable time with your family. Right? I talked about that. The family unit is so important. Regardless of what that family unit looks like, it's important to have parents or have guardians, whatever the case may be, there home as much as possible, engaging with their children, grandchildren, whatever. All right.
And they'll be able to call in their Walmart order, go right up, pick it up, and go home.
That's right. Which is a great service to me. That has been a blessing in disguise. Even with Molly. Our daughter Molly doesn't like box stores.
She's not a fan of box stores.
Marsden's hardware store in Jim Thorpe, she'll walk all around there.
She loves it.
Yeah, walks all, the guys.
You put her in those, and she right away.
Yeah, she's ready to get out of there. Same with Walmart. Yeah. So I love the convenience of being able to order online at Walmart. Yeah. Just drive up. They are tracking me the whole time because I do allow them to track me. So when I pull up, I get the little pop-up saying, hey, we've seen you arrive. What color is your car? What slot you're in? They come out, load it in, sign, and gone. And I haven't been disappointed at all.
Oh, their selection of produce is excellent. Because I usually I always thought, well, they're going to give you the worst produce, to get rid of it. I think they have separate produce.
It almost seems
really nice produce.
Yeah, they've been doing a good job. So kudos to Walmart for that.
And all the hard workers.
Yeah. Oh,
they're hustling.
They were indeed hustling. Yeah, you were talking about taxes a little bit. For LVHN or the nonprofit. Right. And we are going to jump to a tax issue. But first I want to remind everyone, and for those who are just joining us, this is Carbon Matters live streaming. This is the live streaming version of my blog, Carbon Matters. So I want to thank you for joining us tonight as we have a conversation on the issues that matter most to you and are important to us to ensure that we're better informed voters come 5 November.
Nicole made a great point. She said the level of care at both hospitals will not be what they offer at their main sites. People need choices and specialists. Mm-hmm. And Marianne said, plug for Walmart, you're going to give them more business. There's some diehard people who will never go to Walmart.
Well, isn't Giant starting to do that?
Giant is doing it as well. Yeah, you can go and
order online
for Giant. Yep.
Aldi's doesn't do it though.
No,
Aldi's is right.
They will never do it.
That's the German company Aldi's, which is expanding rapidly in the U.S.
Yep.
But is less expensive, but limited in their variety and stuff like that.
It's actually a greater variety. It's just that it's hit or miss. It's whatever is available. Mm-hmm. It's not a consistent.
Okay. And again, we do have a couple local stores also, and like we do the Jim Thorpe Market, they have to run up to Redner's. You have mallards in Lehighton and all over. You have small independent
Country
grocers.
Harvest.
Country Harvest, yeah, Palmerton and stuff like that. Yeah. So again, this is Carbon Matters live streaming. I'm Chris Lukasevich, candidate for Carbon County Commissioner. Thank you for joining us. We're kind of right now in the middle into the deeper stuff.
Okay.
It's interesting. We did have a PM, a message today?
Josh McCartney said Aldi's delivers to your home. What?
Do they have an app, Josh? That would be, I wonder if they have an app.
Yeah, let us know if they have an app.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out and see how that works. Okay, that's good. All right. Well, I think
awesome.
that's where we're going anyhow. We have seen some attempts at home delivery of groceries, but not in this area. I don't know.
It's a rural area, so it's, in cities they do that all the time.
It seems, in concentrated areas it's
concentrated.
more.
It makes more sense.
Yeah. Huh. That's interesting.
But yeah, they do that they were doing that in Northern Virginia when we lived there.
Okay. Yeah. So I have to jump back because there it was, planners debate need for Lehigh Valley Hospital.
Let me show you where that wait, I'm reading the wrong spot. Oh, here we go.
All right.
Go ahead and talk.
Well, what are you trying to find specifically?
About what they said about it being being a not-for-profit. They wouldn't provide the township with any property tax, commissioners pointed out.
Okay. All right.
And they also cited increased traffic as a concern.
Yeah, all right. I will take the health care. That's just me. Again, I'm going to tolerate it on the Maury Road. I'll tolerate it more on 443. It's better than driving an hour to the Lehigh Valley for many medical
Josh
appointments.
says it's called Instacart.
Okay, all right. That'll be interesting. I want to look at that and see what that does. How did the St. Luke's break ground jump back into my stack again? I don't know how that got in there.
Patty.
All right.
She says happy birthday to him.
All right. That's an issue we don't talk about, right?
No, we're done.
Right. We're done talking birthday stuff. Somewhere in this world, in England, my birthday is already over. So, all right. And we have about a 5 or 6 hour time difference there. Oh, there's Mahoning plan for a new municipal building. So we did jump ahead a little bit.
We did.
So, but if they need health care after, they're going to have to run to either St. Luke's
Lehighton or Palmerton
or something like that. Okay, so
Franklin.
So I guess we should. How does this keep coming up?
How many papers do we have of that?
No, that's
the same one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, because we were talking about taxes. We were going to jump to taxes next.
Because we're not. Oh, are we talking about the train?
We're going to talk about the train.
Okay.
Tax on the tracks. Railway leaving Jim Thorpe. So does that impact the entire county?
Of course it does. If you watched the live streaming of the commissioners meeting today, you would know that. Because
and that's a great point. Indeed, it does. But and let's bring it into perspective from what we understand. The borough of Jim Thorpe has an amusement tax.
Right.
It is the borough's position, working through their tax broker, Berkheimer. That the Reading, Blue Mountain, and Northern Railroad has not been paying that tax, and they're wanting to collect their back taxes. Maggie and I did go down to the Prothonotari's office and got a copy of the civil suit or the petition that was filed against the railroad for collection of those taxes. I hope to post that in the next day or two when I have a chance to read it myself. It's really not that lengthy. It's just a matter I need a few minutes to scan it and upload it among other priorities. So it's all about a potential amusement tax. There's something there?
No, I'll bring it up later.
All right. So
Zach said, I can't believe their answer to you.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to cut that out. We're going to post that separately once I have a chance, just that 1 minute blurb. So on 25 November, Andy Muller and the Lehigh Gorge Scenic Railroad is going to stop excursions that originate in Jim Thorpe, go up the gorge and come back. Now, he didn't say he would stop all service to Jim Thorpe. Again, it's just that which originates and terminates round trip here in Jim Thorpe.
So he'll probably be selling tickets somewhere else. People will be boarding
somewhere else.
So imagine this: people that have been coming for years to Jim Thorpe to ride the train or whatever show up. They can't get on the train. They can't buy tickets to get on the train, and then they're told, "Oh, you drove from New York City. Guess what? You have to go to Tamaqua
or Port Clinton,
or wherever he's going to do it. We don't know where he's going to do it from,
right?
But you have to go there to, and then either of those locations, Tamaqua and Port Clinton, neither of them have great parking.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the curse of the small town is that there's no parking.
There's no parking to accommodate.
Especially the masses.
And do people really want to drive another 30 minutes to Tamaqua?
To then get on the train to come right back to where they were actually at.
Yeah. So I think the impact is really going to be felt next year because people
even
in the spring,
2 years from now, even maybe
it's going to take a while for people to understand. Hopefully though, if for their sake, hopefully there'll be promotions that highlight that the situation has changed. I mean,
I don't know.
So this brings up a point though about who should have been involved in these conversations.
Who are the stakeholders?
Who are the stakeholders? And I have such a big issue with that around here because we never bring in all the people who may be impacted by it. So think about this. You have the borough of Jim Thorpe. You have the Reading Blue Mountain and Northern Railroad. But what about the Pocono Mountain Visitors Bureau? What about the Carbon Chamber and Economic Development Corporation? What about the Carbon County Commissioners? So where were those last three entities when this was starting to boil? Right? They were nowhere to be heard, nowhere to be seen, or at least publicly. Still haven't heard a statement from the CCEDC that just got another $120,000 grant, renewed contract. Haven't heard a comment from them publicly or privately,
this is huge.
Nor Pocono Mountain Visitors Bureau, which we help support through the hotel tax money. So I'm disappointed in them. And then I'm really disappointed in the Carbon County Commissioners. I knew last night as I was thinking about this, I knew what their answer was going to be.
Oh, yeah.
It's a municipality issue.
Right.
Well, then I asked them, well, how much parking revenue? Don't you realize $336,000 of parking revenue was gained from visitors to Jim Thorpe last year? $336,000. That was used to employ 10 people in Carbon County for administration and actually running the lots, driving, taking ticketing Chris Lukasevich when Tommy calls down and said it's 9:01 and Chris Lukasevich has a C4 mobile parked there, And the fact that the commissioners didn't recognize $350,000 could potentially be lessened because they weren't giving themselves a seat at the table, working with the borough of Jim Thorpe to bring the parties together and have an informed conversation and discussion. Shame on you, Carbon County Commissioners. Shame on you, Pocono Mountain Visitor Bureau and CCEDC. If you say it's otherwise, give me a call at 570-503-6780. CCEDC, Pocono Mountain Visitor Bureau, or any three of the commissioners. Give me a call. Let's have that conversation.
Is JTTA in that in any way?
Oh, they write the borough meetings. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. So good on them. I think Michael Rifkin and those guys, I'm sure, are right on top of it. Yeah. Our merchants and the residents here understand the value of it. Yeah. So hats off to the folks in JTTA for one, leaning forward, being proactive and not reactive of that others have been. So I'm hoping for some mitigation. Hopefully the parties will come to the tables. I understand Doyle Heffley was trying to get them to the table. That's what I'm reading.
Well, that's what they
that was in the
article. Is it
tonight? Was that tonight or last night? But there was an article that said
they said that Doyle Heffley's tried to talk to them. UD Checks tried to talk to them. The the boroughs tried to talk to them.
Yeah.
Like, they just named off all these agencies that have tried to talk to Andy Mueller, but
Okay. Yeah, and again, remember, just like you look at this mug, right? There's different angles, different perspective of every story. This is the face of Chris, right? That's one perspective. Here, you turn it around, you see it a little bit differently, you see it a little bit differently. All these different angles and perspectives. So we never really have the full story, right? But unless you bring all the players to the table, you're never going to get a holistic view of the issue. You know,
I mean, and there's a lot of people that actually have to pay that amusement tax.
Oh, yeah.
So it seems unfair that he, you know, I mean, and you think about all the tourists that his business brought in, the bathrooms, the train station, all that, the infrastructure.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So there
is a cost associated with visitors.
But there's the pros and cons of, this whole business, and what could have been done to maybe soften that or whatever.
Yeah. So big issue. Talking about employment, Mac workers on strike for the first time in decades. In decades. Yeah. And we do also know, I think, GM workers are on strike across the country also. Now, I think they've reached a tentative agreement, but the strike hasn't ended. I haven't been really following the Mac worker strike very much. It's ended.
It's over.
Oh, there it is. Good. Let's get our Mac, right? Get our Mac. Good. Yeah. The date on this one was, you know what? I didn't see the follow-up in the Times News, and this was on the 14th.
That was it.
It was on the news today that.
Oh, okay.
That a tentative agreement was.
Tentative for Mac. Okay, good.
Okay.
So tentative agreement was reached.
That little bird that's telling us the
Right.
true story is Edie Lukasevich, the mom of...
Yes, our Borough Council member
Borough
here
Council
sitting
member,
with us.
yes.
So we have a live audience tonight. All right, so jumping back to Palmerton, right? Because obviously I have deep roots, 107 years of deep roots in Palmerton. And they're going to try to drill into those roots to test the water. Phase 4, the remediation of that Superfund site. The EPA wants to come in and do some drilling. The folks in Palmerton leave well enough alone, more concerned with them digging some holes and contaminating the water by actually digging into the ground.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, because you can imagine they drill down and all that stuff goes down with it.
Yeah, but I know they're going to drill the wells by the east plant.
Nancy says hi. Nancy Hoover.
Nancy Hoover
says hi.
Our neighbor next door.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I missed, because I was out canvassing, I didn't get to the planning commission meeting for the county. So Ivan Meixel from Jim Thorpe, I apologize, I would have loved I got to the last two, but didn't get to this one. I see the planners okayed the county emergency center. And it says, once completed, the fire training facility will include live fire training sites and a drill tower for firefighters, police, county department, and EMS. All right, and that's the scaled down version.
Right.
All right, it was like a $14-15 million project. Who knows what it really would have been right before the election. Interesting. Scale that down to $3 to $4 million. God bless you. To what the necessities really are, not the wants. So hopefully we have that back on track. My position always has been we need the best trained, educated, and incentivized volunteer firefighters, emergency service personnel in all the state of Pennsylvania, but we have to do it in a fiscally responsible manner. All right. And there was a drive about a month or two ago here in Jim Thorpe raising funds, and I did get that check sent out, so good for them. I remember they used to go door to door back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Used to go door to door all the time. So again, really big, I'm a big supporter of the burn tower. I think that's going to be a great asset. It's been so long since we lost the one down along the Mahoning Creek. So that's good addition here. Again, fiscally responsible. Get it back to needs. I will say fiscal irresponsibility. Carbon County working on space issues. Well, they still haven't done a true assessment of what the needs are. They're looking at 44 Susquehanna Street. That was the old maintenance and archives building. And we talked about this a couple months ago. They want to knock the second level off it.
The top.
The top level, basically,
yeah.
the top
With that
floor,
hole through it.
retain that particular building. And all of a sudden, these priorities for the county have flip-flopped in just a couple months. Well, since they flip-flopped and said they weren't going to do the Susquehanna Street project, because that was all about a fourth courtroom that was critically needed, probation space, office, which was critically needed. But now all of a sudden, the critical need for office space is to move the Bureau of Elections.
Two people.
Move the new
To a whole building.
Move the new voting machines. Wait a minute. They're actually not new voting machines, right? You get a Scantron card and then you have scanners. So they're really not voting machines, right? You go into like a little booth area, right? You fill in your little dot and you put it in a scanner. Can't believe that's taking up more space than the current voting machines.
Machines that are machines. They're big.
Yeah. Again, it's this lack of study and assessment.
They did say they wanted all the stuff together. They wanted the office and the machines.
Sure, because that's critical. No, it's not. We know it's not. And again, what happened to the courtroom? What happened to the need for probation office to have more space? The public defenders.
I thought it was cool too that they said they wanted to put a conference room in there. I'm like, a conference room? It's because you use it all the time. You use it every day.
Yeah, and you know what? And there might be a need for it. But if there is a need for it, justify it.
Right.
Show us the study that has been done or the research that said we need a really large conference room. We have nothing that can accommodate what we need to do right now.
Then do it. But then
do it.
Oh, and then of course they're using the same people that gave the bad advice.
Right, for the other building project.
Yeah.
Right. And Mr. Mike Shorten was there a couple weeks ago talking to the commissioner. Just put the stuff on hold.
Yeah.
Wait till January.
Just wait till the new board comes in and let them
determine.
But because they're spending money doing this, and then it may potentially get closed down later, but they've spent money. Because they're hiring people, they're whatever.
That's right. Yeah. I think with, really, it's the first Tuesday in January, the new Board of Commissioners take office. I would be hesitant moving forward with any of these projects.
Well, many people have already said, that building is in terrible condition.
Yeah. We know it's not, we know it's not critical. So if it's not critical, it can wait 2.5 months.
Right.
Right? Again, no one's going to lose life, limb, or eyesight if we just put a pause on this expenditure of money for a plan that the next board may not want at all.
Right.
Right? So again.
And Chris is never about, he's about the facts. He's about what's known entities. Me, not so much.
Right.
I have a theory that there's I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine going on. Tommy's promising Lisa Dart a whole building. Let's see what Lisa Dart's going to do for Tommy.
She's a head of the Bureau of Elections.
Yes.
Wow. The conspiracy theory, right? And we do know, though, that interesting enough, and there's going to be election board meeting next week. And I will tell you that 2 members of the election board who were appointed by Judge Nanovic are actually supporters of Tommy Gerhardt. Well, how do you know this, Chris? Well, because I review petitions for candidates and I review financial filings of the candidates. So I know 2 appointed members of the election board have a conflict of interest. Right. That's going to make for an interesting election board meeting next week. And I'll be live streaming that unless for some reason I just can't get there. Was at the prison board meeting this past week. I just want to give you an update. We're averaging about 247 inmates a day, $54 million, a $5.4 million budget for the prison from last year, but the numbers have been as high as 258 daily average
Prisoner.
in the prison. That was in September. It was 248, and now it's about 247
Yeah,
average.
Scott Pompa mentioned that. He said it was less than 100.
Yeah,
Back when he was working
yeah.
there.
And talking this past week to some employees up there, corrections officers, there is definitely a large influx of mentally challenged individuals. You know, the state got rid of most of our mental institutions, and they are now in our prisons. And again, the prisons don't have the resources really to provide the services to treat those types of individuals. And then obviously there's probably the smaller drug offenders who should have options short of total incarceration. You know, I like to say SOPO, short of a prison opportunity. SOPO, yeah, short of prison opportunity. SOPO, SOPO, short of prison opportunities. That's my acronym for it. So if you hear me on 28 October say, I think we need more SOPO, it's short of prison opportunities for small offenses in regards to
we're giving
drugs.
them the help as far as resources and techniques and ways to mitigate their addictions or whatever that are causing them to create to commit these crimes.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't go to the source, then you're just going to have them going in and out revolving door with the jail.
Yeah, no,
You're
that's
going to
good.
do your 2 points.
Yeah, I'm going to hit two more of the day one
Motions.
motions that to be made. And again, if you're just joining in at the 55-minute mark, this is Carbon Matters live streaming, the live streaming version of my blog, Carbon Matters, that can be seen at c4commissioner.org. Please feel free, other than between 5:30 and 7:30, and I do now have my phone set up for Do Not Disturb from 5:30 to 7:30, so it doesn't matter if someone calls, they're not going to be able to reach me between those 2 hours. It only took me 12 months to get this set up. I'm so technology savvy. But you can call me, though, at 570-503-6780. And again, we do still have about a half a dozen of the C4 long tees, black, available, full back, chest logo also. That's about 3.5 to 4 inches. Oh, Maggie has one on right now. There you go. So it's being modeled right there as we speak. But again, let's finish up with my next two motions that I'm proposing. I had 24 of them. Again, the longest proposed Carbon County Commissioners meeting in the history of Carbon County, I'd like to think. So number 11, convene in coordination with our fire chiefs a quarterly commissioner-hosted and guided volunteer firefighter crisis action committee. My position is, the reality is, volunteer firefighting is going to continue to go downward. We need to start discussing the potential for hybrid manned fire departments, which may include of some full-time or part-time paid firefighters in our fire stations. To ensure we have proper manning, and during critical hours there's sufficient human resources individuals to respond to emergency. But again, what I want to do is bring together the subject matter experts, have the commissioners bring them together. Now there is a group that already meets, but I don't see a vision. I don't see a plan. I hear a lot about talking, but I don't see any products and a plan to move forward. So let's bring those together. Now, that's talking about firefighters and emergency services. I'm really about, making this a place, my vision of Carbon County, right, where kids are no longer saying, I can't wait to get the hell out of here, but rather, I can't wait to get back here, right? Well, we need to start talking to the kids and figuring out what might entice them back. What are those things that they're missing in their quality of life? Just like adults, there's certain things we may want. We may want certain restaurants. We might want access to a safe, clean park. So what do our students want? What do the children of our community want? Well, we need to bring them together, and that's my next proposal right here. And it is establish a commissioner's student advisory group a CSAG, CSAG. I love acronyms.
He does.
All right, so this CSAG, Commissioner Student Advisory Groups, composing of student representatives from each of the school districts in Carbon County and county students attending Hazleton School District, that convenes 3 times a year. So these high school students will come together with the commissioners in a forum to have a conversation and talk about concepts or ways that we can improve the quality of life for the students and have them thinking about the future, maybe outside the box of what would be that which will bring them back to our community after they go to college, military, the trade school, go off and see the world. So that's my number 11 and 12. Okay. So this is Carbon Matters live streaming. We're going to get ready to close it up here.
There was one more comment.
Oh, that's good.
Yep, it's Samantha Bowman, and I don't know who you are.
Oh, is this Ryan's? I don't know if it's related to Ryan.
I don't know. She said, "Why are you slandering Lisa Dart over a theory? Not everyone is as underhanded as you are." I don't know you, but if you feel like I'm underhanded, then that's on me. You know, but I very specifically said it's not about Chris. Chris is about the facts. That was just my theory.
Yeah, okay. That's a person's theory. Have that conversation. Again, you know, I will tell you though, what I found, only been involved in Carbon County for 3 years on the political scene by attending the commissioners meeting, I no longer doubt anything until I see the facts otherwise. The craziest things you would think would not be happening, well, they're happening.
They are.
You know,
It's the crazy. We've heard so much stuff, and it's like you jaw dropping.
But again, you hear it, but then you need to go out and start scraping away at the surface, peeling back the onion, and finding what is the truth, right? And that's what you have to do. Call it slander, call what you want. Go out and do your research and prove otherwise.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. If you can somehow find out whether there is anything going on there or not, and come back to us with that evidence or those facts, I would be happy to say, well, I was wrong.
Yep. Errata, mea culpa.
Yep, mea culpa. You know, and you know, I'll be the first one to admit that I was wrong.
But don't underestimate the establishment.
Exactly.
I'll tell you what, you underestimate the establishment, you'll be re-electing them in November, and then you'll pay the price for the next 4 years.
Not just you, but everybody will be paying the price.
Yeah, of course. Yep. So again, you know, I call it a conspiracy theory. You call it slander. I don't know. Let's find out the facts. So again, I'm Chris Lukasevich, candidate for Carbon County Commissioner. Thank you and everyone for joining us this evening. I know hundreds of people are going to view this after the fact. We'll make sure it's posted and shared, available online. Please get out there and vote on 5 November. We have one more Carbon Matters on October 31st. That is the same night that the 9/12 Project. I'll be out at the 9/12 Project, I believe about 6:30 in the evening at Normal Square. I believe that's going to be a public event out there. I'll pass out the details as soon as I get them from our point of contact at the 9/12 Project. Hope some of you or most of you or any of you can make it out there to the 9/12 Project, where I'll be out speaking just 5 days before the election. Again, remember, Cafe Ruiz is our official sponsor. If you're really interested in a Judge Janine signed autograph book, reach out to me. I'll connect you to the contact person for that, who hosted the event up in Penns Peak. And remember, if it matters to you, it matters to me. Have a wonderful night.
You can do it.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.